Okay. Hello. Can you hear me? Hi, welcome. This is really great to see you here. We build the house, our intent. We are about to launch the first ever Symbio reverse pitch in Finland, which means that you are very privileged to be here tonight. My name is Nina Pulkkis. I'm a science journalist, and I work with a science series called The Future of Finland. And I'm also privileged to be part of the Symbio Powerhouse team. I have my heart in synthetic biology, definitely. I'm just going to put the show on today. We have really interesting talks, so I hope you all stay till the end. And all of you students who are here, you have the opportunity to ask questions, anything you want to ask during and after the program. Put the ad once more. So that's where we are today. And this is how the competition will run. We have a very light sort of facilitated phase in this, so really the students get to work on their own, in their own teams. They can work solo, they can work in pairs, or they can make teams of 3, but preferably not more than 3. There's an opportunity in April to join us for a workshop. Well, everybody can ask questions and go through some problems if they have some, but if not, then this is completely optional. But then, of course, the finals, that is a mandatory experience, so that's when we'll hear really, hopefully, very interesting proposals to all of these challenges. I'd like to thank Design Factory, a huge thanks for letting us be here and hosting the entire competition. And then, of course, Sitra, who made possible this whole project of Symbio Powerhouse, and VTT. And also, a big thanks to Jenni and Antti Vihuri Foundation. They've had the courage to set up a Center for Young Symbio Scientists here in Finland. So we have a lot of good things happening around synthetic biology, and hopefully this contest will make even more of an impact on students, and they will see how much potential there is, and hopefully we have a lot of new Symbio scientists to come. I'd like to ask Riitta Silvennoinen from Sitra to join me up on the stage and let you say a few words. The project that we are running, Symbio Powerhouse, is all about circular economy. It's about boosting circular economy with synthetic biology, and that means using any waste raw material from CO2 to whatever slush that comes out from somewhere. Perhaps not the clouds, the slush that we get down from the, I don't know if that's very usable, but please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, it's great to be here. I didn't know this is the first, this kind of situation, but great to be here. Yes, I come from Finnish Innovation Fund, Sitra, and we are funding this project, and that's why I'm here today. If you don't know Sitra is a future-oriented public organization, and our task is to make a successful Finland of tomorrow. So to create possibilities for all people in Finland to have sustainable and good future. And of course, our vision is to make this better world and stop the climate change. And I work as a circular economy expert, and we have a team full of experts, and our task is to make Finland turn the whole society towards circular economy. And We have many tools. I think we need all tools to stop the climate change. As you have seen from the news, the youth are at the moment striking, having a climate strikes, and they are very worried about the future. And my motivation comes there that I will be able to say to all of them that I will do my best and even more to stop the climate change. And I see circular economy as a set of very useful tools for this target. And as you probably all know, in circular economy, we intend to use all the raw materials what we get from the nature as efficient and as wisely as we can, and keep them in the circle, keep them in use. That means that all the waste streams should be turned to valuable products or side streams. All the products and materials should be designed to be recycled, and they should be able to be repaired and be used as long as possible. Of course, renewable sources for raw materials and energy should be included in circular economy. We see that we need lots of new cooperation and new ideas, and that's why this project is very interesting from our behalf also. I see the synthetic biology is a very promising tool in circular economy, and it's not used enough. It has so much new possibilities, and it's promising technology which is combining AI, biology, technology, and it should be used more to save this world. That's why we are included here. For me, this synthetic biology offers a lot of success stories, and these great challenges today, I think they are a good example of these stories, what we can now create and tell to people. And when we start telling these stories, I think more companies, more students, more organizations are involved, and this synthetic biology keep going better and better, and it gives us more tools to fight against climate change. And in synthetic biology, I see that there are lots of possibilities in the whole life cycle, and it's always important to look the whole life cycle, not to concentrate just the recycling or just the processing. It's crucial to look the whole thing. So in synthetic biology, as mentioned earlier, these new raw materials from waste or from biomaterials could be produced with new microbes, or then the chemical processes, they could be replaced with biological processes, leave some unit operations off, lower the temperatures, and make it more energy efficient. There are lots of possibilities. Synthetic biology, I think it's mostly known in pharmaceuticals, in health sector, and at some level at biofuels. But I think we should make it more popular in circular economy also. So I'm so happy to see all of you here, these great challenges, and I'm really waiting for these great stories, what we can tell to the world. We will have a World Circular Economy Forum in June in Helsinki, and there will be 2,000 international circular economy, well, not experts, politicians, leaders who are involved in this field, and we would like to tell these stories from Finland to all of this audience. So I wish you a great evening, and I wish you will find very good solutions and stories to tell inside this synthetic biology in circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, then I'm going to say a few sort of practicalities to all of your students. If you, for some reason, don't know where to go, there are these kind of, I mean digitally, there are these small sort of cards with a QR and the dates and the web address where you find your way to the challenges and all the information you need during the contest. And we're working on a few sort of digital platforms, and we're going to tell you more about those. And if you haven't registered to compete yet, please do. You have nothing to lose. You can compete solo. You can make your team during next week even. I'm going to make sure that by the end of next week, everybody knows who they're working with and with which challenge. So really the key is to register for the competition, because otherwise I can't reach you and you can't reach me. And then we have our small brochure for Symbio Powerhouse, also with valuable addresses, and I hope you all share, and actually I really hope you follow us on some of the social medias and sort of stay tuned for all the interesting stuff we're going to do during this year. The next speaker will get a formal presentation in cinematic form. Like I said, we're doing the series called The Future of Finland, and we are about to begin working on our next episode, and let's see what that could be about.
Maikkarin uudessa tiedesarjassa brittiläinen molekyylibiologian professori Howie Jacobs selvittää, mistä Suomen tulevaisuus on tehty.
In this program, I will be meeting fellow scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, all kinds of people, to chart how Finland can secure its future using the same mix of ingredients as has powered today's prosperity.
Lähde matkalle tulevaisuuteen. Katso, miksi meillä sittenkin on toivoa. Suomen tulevaisuus. Maikkarilla.
In this episode, we'll explore how the tools of molecular genetics open up almost limitless possibilities of accelerating and adapting nature for human use.
All right, so the man himself here today live. Welcome, Howie Jacobs. The floor is yours.
I'm very Mac challenged, so I might need some help here.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can go with the arrows.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak to you this afternoon. I'm going to give a short plug for our TV series that Nina has already introduced, and link it, as she's already started to do, with the project that's going to be undertaken here. So first, I just want to summarize what we've done so far. We've so far produced 5 episodes that have been broadcast over the last 2 or 3 years, and they are on linked themes that are very much part of the same topic that we've already heard. How do we build the future of Finland, and through that the future of the whole world, by applying scientific knowledge and the resources that we have, the diminishing resources that we seem to have at our disposal. So far, we've covered the topics of the use of new uses for cellulose. We've looked at renewable fuels, at different ways of using wood, which is, of course, one of the major natural resources of Finland. We've looked at energies of the future and focused specifically on electric transport. The ethos of the series is that and maybe it's easier for me to say this as a foreigner because I know that you Finns are a little bit shy and bashful in blowing your own trumpet. So it's easier for me as a foreigner to say some of these things. Finland is a country that is very well endowed with basic natural resources. And because of the kind of society that has developed here, it's also a place in the world that is very focused on education and on research, the use of brain power, and in particular, taking apparently meager resources and turning them into something great by applying ingenuity in combination with improvisation. And at the base of all of that, of course, is discovery science. We can't figure out what to do to improve the world unless we know something about how the world actually works. And the aim is to put, or at least the aim of the series, is to place these two topics together and explain how they can produce the end result that I feel that we all seek, both to secure and develop our national prosperity, but even more important than that, to apply what comes out to resolving the pressing problems of the whole world. And I've put two other things into this slide which I'd just like to mention because I think they're important. That plus sign is, of course, the Finnish flag. And what's very important here in making this a reality is the sense of national pride and even national mission that is there very quietly under the surface in Finnish society. It's not an ethnic pride. It's a pride in what an isolated group of people in the corner of the world can achieve by focusing on education and science. And in addition, my equal sign is intended to just draw out the very important point that this is only possible in Finland because of Finland's commitment to and tradition of equality, where everybody has a role to play, men and women, young and old, and people educated to all different levels and all different parts of, geographically speaking, all different parts of the country. And that's where you guys come in, the students who are going to participate in this competition, because the competition that you're going to undergo here is essentially the same process. You're going to take some concepts that you will draw out from basic knowledge, and you will use them to develop solutions to real-world problems. The 6th episode of the series that Nina has already alluded to is going to be focused on synthetic biology, but it's going to take a slightly different direction from the previous episodes. Instead of simply explaining what synthetic biology can do and how it will improve everyone's life and how we do it, it's going to actually focus as well on the processes, the mental processes behind it. And that's where you come in, because the output from this competition is going to form part of the raw material of this episode, the process by which you will devise solutions to the problems that are going to be proposed to you will actually be depicted in this episode. So synthetic biology, and especially this particular episode of our series, is going to be about how we put microbes to work, how we take genetic biochemical virtuosities from right across the field of biology, from the myriads of individual species of microorganisms that are doing their thing in their own niche, and put them together to do new things that can benefit us and improve the world that we have disfigured in the process of developing it. And of course, you're going to have to be doing the same thing as students, because although the microbes ultimately will do the work, you're going to have to figure out ways of making them do it. I'm going to end by following Rita's plug for her own Congress on circular economy by telling you that I am also involved in organizing a big Congress which will take place next year in Tampere. And Life 2020 is going to be the major meeting of the year of the whole life sciences community from Europe, and will obviously then contain many young scientists, students, and young investigators, and people involved in science at all different levels and addressing all different kinds of problems in molecular life sciences. And we'd very much like to make synthetic biology and some of the activities that you're going to be doing in this competition a key part of the Congress. And you'll hear a lot more about that in the future from me, from Nina, from Maria, and others. So I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and I think I'm now going to hand back to Nina, who will introduce the actual pitches, or reverse pitches. Yep.
Thank you so much. All right, so now we are at the point where we're going to find out in depth what the challenges are all about. The first pitch, reverse pitch, is going to be presented by Neste company. And I'm going to give Mervi her microphone. And the point, if you need the pointer or clicker.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good evening. My name is Mervi Vodilav, and I come from Neste. And our challenge to you today is advanced solutions to produce fuels from CO2. As you all know, we are battling for the climate change, and the time for the battle is now. We want to reduce CO2 emissions, but could we recycle the CO2 and do something useful with it? So, we are looking for advanced solutions to produce fuels from CO2. And you can focus on either producing the fuel itself or some raw material for the fuel. For example, oil or sugar. You can focus on crops, oil crops, sugar crops, or microorganisms. But we want to minimize land use. Or we want to use marginal land. We can use poisoned land, or then maybe no land use at all. But what is important in this challenge is that your solutions had to be scalable. A wide range of synthetic biology approaches could be useful. You have to figure this out for yourself. But for example, you could take an algae. You could improve the carbon dioxide intake of an algae. Or you could make the algae produce more oil. You could tackle the photosynthesis route in an algae. Or you can take a crop and improve the oil yield or sugar yield of the crop. Or you can make the crop grow in a poisonous land or something. Something like that. You have to pick up the solution for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mervi. This is no small challenge. And of course, we're going to solve this in this competition. And also, I'd like to say for the students, well, all these presentations will be available after the event as well on our site. And be creative. I mean, even if the challenge will take you one way, you can, you'll find your way. So don't be afraid to really use your own imagination in these different challenges. The next challenge is going to be presented by Kemira. Jonni Algren, please join us.
Thank you, Nina. Good evening also from my behalf. So my name is Jonni Algren and I'm working for Kemira. I don't know how well you know company Kemira, but Kemira is working in applications, in the area of applications which are using a lot of water. Okay, then I, maybe I'm
You want the clicker?
Yeah, okay, so it's just following.
Yes.
Good. So Kemira is working in an area of applications which are utilizing a lot of water. And that means pure water treatment. We are talking about municipal and industrial water treatment, making clean water or treating wastewater. We are talking about paper making. Paper making is utilizing a lot of water, and also oil drilling. And these are the areas where we wanted to kind of stress our challenge. Kemira is providing several types of chemicals for these applications. But one of the important product classes are polymers, typically water-soluble polymers or polymers which can make a film on paper or board surface. Today, these polymers are made from fossil-based raw materials. What we would like to see is that because nature is also producing different kinds of polymers, could we somehow utilize those natural polymers in these applications? And what is missing there is that when we are talking about nature-made polymers, biopolymers, they very seldom, almost never, can be used in these applications as such. So they need some kind of modification. Whether they need to be modified in such a way that there is coming charge on their structure, or they are made to form films like synthetic polymers. So this modification can be done by utilizing ordinary chemical reactions. And our challenge is very much based on that can we utilize enzymes and make microbes to do the work to get these desired properties for these polymers. And when we are talking about chemical modification, that means typically that we are only using fossil-based carbon. And that is the way that if we are utilizing biopolymers, so that means that the carbon is bio-based, and if we can make enzymes to do the work, and if the enzyme as such is required, or it is changing the structure of the biopolymer, or it is linking some modification units to the biopolymer, and especially if these linking units are also bio-based, we are enriching the bio-based carbon. We made this challenge kind of twofold. So we have point 1 and point 2. And we like to see this challenge kind of considered or and. So you are free to take a challenge for this both or select only one. Why we wanted to put this twofold challenge is that we thinking kind of beforehand, challenge number 1, challenge point 1, this is really big challenge. Because we are talking about modification of biopolymer structure in such a way that the structure gets cationic charge. And this cationic charge plays very important role when the product is used in wastewater treatment and paper applications. The charge as such is not enough. It's not enough that there is tiny amount of charge. Charge needs to be at adequate level. And besides that, the molecular weight, the chain length of the polymer needs to be long enough, high enough. And these are very, very strict demands. And that's why we wanted to include also challenge point 2, the second option. So please feel free to select one of these two. If you want big challenge, take number 1. If you want to get the challenge, which is not as big, then number 2, and if you want to have major challenge, take both. Because challenge 2 is a little bit different kind in that sense, that there we want to modify biopolymers in such a way that they become film-forming products. And film forming is required because where we are targeting are barrier applications. And barrier means that it needs to be kind of able to prevent penetration of gases, vapor, and also grease and water. And how these films are kind of able to be formed means that there must be some way that the product is producing continuous film. One possibility is thermoforming, but of course we don't want to limit only on that. And when we are talking about paper or board product, so that means that the film which is put on the surface of paper or board, it cannot prevent repulping of the board or paper material, because it is very important to get paper and board also recycled. Just examples. So when we are talking about biopolymers, we listed here some, but please keep in mind these are only examples. You don't need to be limited to these only. But we are talking about biopolymers like starch. We are talking about celluloses, hemicelluloses, lignin, tannins, chitin, chitosan. And why these? There are certain reasons. Cellulose is the biggest biomass in the whole globe. So of course that means that it's a very versatile material. You can fractionate these different polymers there. All these cellulose, hemicelluloses, lignin, tannin comes from wood, different parts of wood. Chitin is the second biggest biomass in the whole globe. So that's why that is attractive as well. Polysaccharides, starch among them, is today very well technically available, and that's the reason that starch is also included. Our ultimate goal is to be able to utilize waste materials. This chitin already becomes from waste, and also partly these lignocellulosic components. But we don't want to make this challenge too challenging anyhow, and that's why we want to start from these kind of named pure polymers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonni. Indeed, we are looking at very great challenges, and all of these companies reach millions of people daily, so whatever you're solving and whichever challenge you choose, you are definitely on a path to make the world a better place. The next challenge will be presented by ST1, Anna Kankaanpää.
Thank you. It's actually funny to have the last pitch before me because I see obvious synergy in what I'm here for, and this is the reason. We have lignin. We have a lot of lignin. And so we actually named the challenge as ST1 Lignin Challenge. And the background is that we have a cellulonolics concept producing lignocellulosic ethanol in northern Finland. It uses sawdust. Actually, it uses sawmill waste materials as feedstock. And the annual ethanol production capacity is 10 million liters. Also, side products such as, well, lignin, turpentine, furfural, and wood syrup are generated. And there are several parts of the process where synthetic biology could help. Of course, the hydrolysis step and the enzymes involved with it, they could be engineered for inhibitor tolerance. They could be engineered for, well, we could have a strain that produces our own enzymes for the plant. Also, fermentation, we could have a pentose utilizing the yeast, or better inhibitor tolerance, maybe shorter fermentation time. But the real challenge for us that we would like to present here is the lignin, circled here in red. And there are several routes to do the valorization of lignin. One of these is biological funneling. And this is actually a technology that NREL calls emerging at the moment. For those of us who have been in the industry for, well, years, maybe someone has been tens of years in the industry, it's been an emerging technology for a while now. So, however, there have been numerous developments in the field of synthetic biology recently related to the toolkits and methods that we use in order to get what we want. And currently, we have seen, during the last few years, we have seen breakthroughs that are actually really revolutionizing synthetic biology as a field as we speak. And it's cutting genetic work, it's cutting lead time on how we get the strains, and well, maybe this is really the emerging time point for the biological funneling. And as I said, we have a ton of the lignin. There's a picture of it from the Kajaani facility. We have actually a lignin production capacity of 15,000 tons, which means that if you want to test something, we have material that we can give you. And obviously, valorization of the hydrolysis lignin is critical for the success of lignocellulosic ethanol. In order to cut the end product costs, we need to also valorize the side streams coming out from the plant. And there are, well, it's quite basic lignin, dry matter content 50%, lignin content 65, 75, depends on how the factory is working at the moment. And we have residual cellulose, and in addition, a bunch of sugars, acids, phenolic compounds. It's quite condensed, and it has quite low reactivity. And we have done lignin research from the year 2017. And as you see, there are several approaches utilizing thermochemical routes for lignin valorization. I would personally like to see the biological route utilized here as well. And we are happy to give the pitchers our information on the lignin. Of course, we're happy to give the material out, obviously, and our hope would be that via synthetic biology, perfect route for us would be found to valorize the lignin. And as you see, this is quite an open challenge, and we want to keep it that way so that we get all the ideas possible for this. And so I will end this pitch for in the final saying. So old industry saying is that you can make anything out of lignin except money. But I don't know, maybe could this be the time when this could actually be solved? Maybe. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. Such cool challenges. Our last challenge will be presented by a completely different type of company, namely IKEA. And I will give microphones. Actually, now I will give both of the microphones.
Hi everyone, my name is Jessica and I'm the sustainability manager for IKEA. I guess most of you or all of you know our company that we represent, and this is my colleague Olli-Pekka.
Good evening. Yes, I'm currently working as responsible for all the textiles what we sell in Finland in IKEA.
And we'll go a bit to the background why IKEA is here and what we are doing around circularity and climate positivity, as we say. Our vision is to create a better everyday life for the many people, and we see that living a more sustainable life at home really supports our vision that has been there from the beginning. And we're now in an era where we're looking to find new ways of producing our products but also offering services to our customers. And then that's, again, linking to the challenge that we will get to at the end. And we have big commitments on our people and planet positive agenda. We will, by 2030, we will produce all our products to be renewable or already from recycled materials. And there's a lot of stuff happening. Every day almost we get a product that is renewed, made better, and it's from a new material. So we learn every day, more or less, when something is updated and then new stuff comes in. We will also, by 2030, we have a commitment to lower the carbon footprint on average for every product by 70%. And the majority of that footprint is coming from materials at the moment. So really the big investment and the big movement is in the material and then the production and the product design.
Yes.
Then, yes.
Yes, and our challenge is actually coming from the rugs. And I would say that we are the biggest retailer in Finland who's selling rugs, and it's actually quite a many million business for us. And of course, in IKEA, we are a volume-based company, and that means that we can keep our prices quite low. And that gives us a kind of, so to say, vicious circle that our price point is so low that actually when people are buying a polyester rugs, which is one of our main used material when we talk about the rugs, and of course in Finland we have 4 lovely seasons, and all these doormats and hallway runner marks, they're made from polyester. And polyester is a cheap material for us to use, and all polyester what we use is recycled, so that's good. But the prices are so low that actually people are more throw them away instead of wash them. Because the washing in Finland, if you take average service, it's more expensive than the actual rug. So this is our challenge for you guys, that I hope we can actually make a mind change for our Finnish customers and consumers, that not just throw it away. Please recycle from IKEA, and another part of the challenge is that what we come out of the material when it's recycled. Can we utilize that somehow? So that's a kind of two-way challenge for you. First, how we can make this recycling so interesting that people are more recycling than throw it away, and then what would be the outcome of the recycled material, what hopefully we can use some interested way.
And the situation for rug recycling today is in Finland, at least it goes into energy, most of it, and it has for reuse purposes. It has the same problems for mixed for textile as well for garments and such. So there's not a way to utilize it at a good level at the moment. But of course, development is happening, and there we want to see that the recycling of rugs, could it go, what could happen? Could it be made into something completely different? You're the experts on that. We are home furnishing experts, so we're looking for your ideas and really keeping it open and looking also, as many of the others do, to have it also a scalable model that then if we think about further from IKEA Finland, the whole major, huge IKEA corporation in the world, that what would be then the solution that could be useful in all countries and on all markets.
And
so, yes, back to the challenge.
Yes, the one thing, as Jessica mentioned, that we are working in almost 50 countries, and we have more than 400 selling units. So, of course, in IKEA Finland, we want to do something locally, which is relevant for all of you Finnish consumers and customers. So that should be one motivator to make this recycling as interesting for us who live in Finland. So this is also a local solution for us at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I just want to say here in between a very nice comment to all of you students. We were very happy to receive registrations from many parts of Finland, so it's not just Aalto, not just Helsinki, but we have Turku, we have Tampere, and this is really great. And some of you are out there looking at this through the live stream. Also, the live stream will be available later, so you can all check through the pitches and see them through if you forgot something. And the next, I will give and thank you all for the challenges. I'm really super happy for all of these challenges. I'm really glad that all the companies took their time, thought out really good challenges, and I think these are very inspiring for all the students to choose between. Maybe even too difficult. Maybe you want to do many challenges. I guess that's okay, if you have time, I mean the students. The next talk will be connected to the IKEA challenge, because probably all of you who work with microbes now think like, what, a rug, and how's the microbe gonna start eating it from which corner? But we have a solution for that, which is from Otaniemi, and it's like, you could say, almost straight from the oven. So I'm gonna ask Tomi Erho to come and present the extruder.
Okay, thank you, Nina. Yeah, my name is Tomi, and I know not much about synthetic biology. But when Nina called me and asked whether I would like to talk about our novel process, which could be partially helping the IKEA challenge as a pre-treatment step prior to the microbes eating the rug, I said, well, why not? And I was happy to see that it was already in the IKEA's last slide that this process will be used. Let's see. One problem in upcycling waste material to products is in the processing tools. And now I'm talking about an extruder. I'll spend a short time explaining, since I'm not sure if everyone knows what an extruder is. It's a process tool which is used often, frequently in plastics and food and feed processing, for instance. Here's a schematic image of single screw extruder where, in principle, you feed material in from the right side. The screw rotates, and you can feed multiple materials in, and the screw rotates, mixes the material, heats it or cools it, and then pushes it out through a die, and that's how you make dog food or plastic tubes or something. With twin screw extruders, there are two screws which rotate against each other and mix the material well. Anyway, the problem in thinking about recycling rugs or plastic bottles or whatever into new material format that can be used somewhere is the infeed. The extruder design parameters are such, or you can see also from here, that the diameter of the infeed throat is dictated by the diameter of the screw. So in order for you to be able to throw in a pillow in an extruder, you would need to have a huge screw. And that then is a very large investment. You need a very strong motor to be able to rotate the screw and so on. To tackle this problem, one of our scientists came up with an invention how to completely revolutionize the design parameters of an extruder. So he thought that, okay, let's take a hollow barrel and make the screw geometry engraved on the surface of the barrel. Let's put that inside another barrel, and there we have a large diameter screw, which then functions as sort of like a traditional extruder, but the diameter or the scale is completely different. So we got funding from Business Finland, and we built the first prototype where we have a 30 centimeter screw diameter, which is about 10 times more than in traditional extruder with the same capacity. So I will show you a couple of case examples which we have trialed this with, and if this helps you groups in visualizing how this could be used as a pre-treatment for rugs. And please keep in mind that this is the first prototype we have. We don't have the whole system of a die and then means to chop that output into pellets or so, but it's simple engineering that can be done. So in another Business Finland funded project called Wastebusters, we used the extruder to compact different waste streams into such format that they are easily fed into thermolysis. And in this case, like waste plastic and some cardboard and wood-based materials. And the thermolysis scientists were very happy with this. So that's the stuff we threw in, and it came out as condensed concrete material, which could then be chopped into small pellets and could be eaten by microbes or something like that. In this case, it was pre-treatment for thermolysis. Something that comes close to the challenge is recycling of textiles. Like in this case B, we had 100% polyester fabric, which was then compacted and made into pellets, which then we injection molded into a bar. But a very interesting case is actually both A and C, where we have two different materials, and our extruder has heating elements. So we heated the device to the level where in case A, only the PP melted, so we had, the output was a composite material with fibers and plastic embedded. But in case C, we threw in a pillow, or actually half of a pillow. The whole pillow was too large, but we had to cut it in half. But a polyester pillow filling with cotton casing, and we got out this nice composite structure with cotton fibers and polyester plastic matrix, which we could then injection mold, in this case, into a simple bar, but you could do, I don't know, mobile phone casing or something out of this, or this. And the last example, that in addition to just utilizing this process as a compactor for the fluffy starting material, we made a short trial with food materials, and in this, most relevant for this challenge is the case number 2, where we tested different oat component or enzymatic treatment of an oat component, and we threw in the oat fraction and enzymes in the process, and then the material that came out was then dissolved in water, and the viscosity was completely different than the untreated material. So that was showed that this could be used as a reactor as well. So I don't know whether that could be relevant for the solution of breaking down the rugs also inside the extrusion process. So that's my introduction to this piece of technology, with the idea that instead of having multiple steps in the process, we could just throw in larger chunks of material and turn that into pellets, which would then be easily eaten by the microbes, for instance. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Tommy. Thanks for coming. And this is to give you the idea that there's a lot of things happening that you might not have heard of that can be useful when you start to think about your solutions. So you don't have to have all the solutions at hand, and they don't all have to be microbial, you might find something, a pre-treatment like this or something else that, so be very open and search a lot of different themes. And now, last but definitely not least, our own professor in synthetic biology, Merja Penttilä, will give you very valuable ideas where to go with your challenges. And after Merja, you will have the opportunity to ask questions from us. We can do it like on the stage, or then we can just, put down the microphones and you can come and talk to us one by one. So that's up to you. So please, Merja.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for all the challenges, because of course they are pretty good, they are very relevant, and they are real challenges. Of course, I would be happy to solve them. So, and of course they are worth of thinking from many angles, and also, just solving sort of bits and pieces would be useful and giving new ideas. But to put a little bit more challenge into this, how do I get into this play is that I will tell what is synthetic biology, because at least for Tommi maybe, so that's not very clear, and of course the borderlines, in this competition also you have to think about that. But because here are quite a lot of people from my synthetic biology course at Aalto University, so at least those teams should think from the synthetic biology point of view, of course, to the extent is possible. And so this is a slide showing, in a way, how the biological sciences, we have been sort of looking from the, in history, sort of looking what is visible here, ecosystems, organisms, then we have gone to more to the cell level, cell chemistry, to proteins, and then finally we have come to the genes. That's the coding material of life. DNA is the code for life. And now then, what synthetic biology is that we are starting to build biology based on our design, based on the design of men. So we are coming from reading what biology is to writing biology. And it's also the physicist Richard Feynman said that what I cannot create, I cannot understand. And this sentence was an eye-opener for me also. And this is very engineering way of thinking. You build things, you understand then how they function, and you can also stretch the sort of limits in a way. You know how things start to function when you build them. And this is synthetic biology. And so in a sort of simplest way, you can say that it's biological systems designed by man, not found in nature. But then if you make a little bit more challenge, you say that they are standardized biological building blocks, molecules, and their assemblies that can be combined in a desired manner to novel, functional, and controllable entities. So this is synthetic biology. So it's not just gene technology. We really talk about synthetic biology. And so it's a combination of engineering sciences and biological sciences, so that it's model-based. You design, and you can also model how the systems work. It's quantifiable, that's needed, so that you can model. It's, in the best case, also programmable. You can turn it on and off, the functions, as you wish. And then, in the best case, also standardized, so that you know what you can take the bricks, put them in different order, you know what comes out. So it could be synthetic genes, proteins, production pathways, intracellular control circuits, cell organelles, production hosts, and what people are also doing, organoids, stem cells, and so on. And it's enabled now by the rapid reduction of cost of DNA sequencing, so we have millions of genes in the databases, which now I think, at least in this challenge, you should go and look for. Where is my gene of interest which could do the job for these challenges? And what is more important is that you can also synthesize DNA in a test tube very cheaply nowadays, long pieces, and that's the basis for that you can also design. You can design it as you wish. You can pull together, and then you can put it in a cell, which then makes a function. So it's design of living things. So this is synthetic biology, and this is, of course, where we should aim for, and we should think about also that when we go for these challenges. But of course, then, the reality may be in this challenge that you rather than go for genetic engineering only, you can think about what this means. You may think about enzyme engineering. Do I need to change the properties of the enzyme which I have selected? Metabolic engineering, it could be laboratory evolution, that you push cells to do something. It could be just biotechnology, whatever that means, or it could be non-GMO enzymes and microbes. So I think we are, and then also then it could be something processing. So we can be flexible, but I just state that my class, they should look at it from this angle, and then it may be that they don't come up with so practical examples, but that's fine. I mean, this will be visionary for the future. And then just to say that we have enormous amounts of raw materials, waste streams, which microbes can use. And this is a difference to any other technology. And then we can have the natural synthesis power. If you just give the food, the cells do what we have engineered them to do in the best case, and you can then get the products out. And then bring the synthetic biology principles. And a classical thing in Finland, of course, is that you have the woody or lignocellulosic raw materials. You have fungi which produce the enzymes, which can tackle not only cellulose, but many of these which came, for instance, in Kemira's presentation and also in SD1s. You get maybe the sugar out, then you have a microbe, and then through metabolic engineering, and in the best cases also in synthetic biology, you can start producing whatever product in principle. So this is now where you then start with, and many of you know that. And then I have put here, in a way, I put here sort of what we can consider as biotechnology is that, yes, the microbes can produce an enzyme which is outside the cell, and you can use that as a catalyst in some of your doings. Then you can use the cell as a catalyst, and it may be that there are naturally some of the reactions in the cell, and it can be quite simple, one enzyme doing a sort of like a biocatalysis, but then which is very much done, and if you really want to do something novel, you may need to do really metabolic engineering, where you tailor long metabolic pathways with using synthetic biology. And now you have been then given quite a variety of things. So this is a very good biotechnology course also, because you have the complex lignin. You have then, of course, the complex different biopolymers, which I don't have a picture here. You have also polyesters. You have a simple raw material, carbon dioxide. And now, from these then, somehow, you need to get to the products. And some of the products are given to you, like cationic polymers for water purification fuels, but then some of the challenges are such that you are just given a starting material. Do something useful and neat out of that. So it's quite a challenge. And I have put some questions how you can then start to think about this. So you can First of all, I think you can or should ask, what is the chemical structure of the raw material or the starting material? We're talking about rugs. What's the chemical structure of the rugs? It was not given to you. Would you like to, the exact chemical structure was not given to you. Would you like to retain the structure, at least part of that, in the final product? Why? How to process the raw material prior to and for the conversion? Are there enzymes for that, or is it just extrusion? If you can choose the raw material, because for some of these cases, I think the raw material was not necessarily even given, would it be sugar, or would you want to have something else? Then you can ask questions, or you should, I think, would you consider a product already, which is already on the market, or which was given to you as the final wanted product, or would you like to make a new one, or even a better version of the product was given? Is there existing evidence that enzymes or microbes can make the product? That's the basic question, I think. Would you make a product which resembles raw material chemistry? Which I've phrased already before. Or would you, or a completely different obtained through a long metabolic pathway? Raw material goes in and then you just decide what you want to make. Is your final product a single molecule, or is it a complex mixture? And these were questions which I sort of took just by looking at the challenges, which I would sort of start thinking about. And many of them are so difficult, but I mean, please be just inventive. And then questions like, if you want to just use enzymes, does your enzyme need cofactors? And if it does, how do you replenish the cofactors or the enzyme itself? This is a little bit of the scalability question, some of the challenges. And basic questions, that is your conversion such that you think that you really need the whole cell? Which species would you select and for what reason? And does it naturally utilize the raw material which you are feeding it? Or should you engineer it to utilize it? There are lots of questions, but I hope that these questions a little bit help you to get started in a way, and the questions depend, of course, on which challenge you take. And my final slide is just sort of a advice that you at least need to be at the conceptual level to provide the idea and the process idea. Consider existing biotechnical possibilities. Does one need to improve existing biotechnology or even create completely new? And then go to the details to the extent your time allows. And this is no more for my course students also, or anybody in a way. You cannot solve it completely or make sort of protocols how to do the work, but go to the details. But also important is here then to sort of dig out, I mean, what are the bottlenecks? What did I not solve? And what do I think that, okay, this does not exist in biology, but it would be so nice if this existed, because that may be the true invention. But you need to a little bit consider the feasibility, and then maybe what are the bottlenecks really to getting the idea to industrial production. And it would be good to consider novelty. What did you think was a new idea which you did not find in literature? But the main thing is be bold and innovative. So in a way, just go for ideas, because even though if you don't find an evidence, it could be something that in particular synthetic biology can do. Okay. Hope this was useful.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I think that was probably helpful for all of you to get started. And then briefly, Reijo is going to a little bit walk you through the digital platform that we are working with. There are actually several ways, so you're not really, you don't have to use one or two of these, but Reijo will have some surprise slides. I don't know if we can get them because it's only this, I don't know. Yeah. So, okay. We are using this open ecosystem network where you should all go and register, and Reijo will just walk you through how and what you're supposed to do. The good thing here is that it's a closed, it's only for this competition, so it's not public, and that gives you the opportunity to interact with the companies who have given the challenges, and throughout the competition there might come new information and things that could be relevant for you while you work on your challenges. So
Okay, my idea was to demonstrate you how wonderful this digital technology is. And this way. So actually, what we're going to have, first thing is that all the material, all the challenges will be in web, so that you find it there. Thank you. Okay. So all the material will be in web. And actually what I'm telling you is a bit about our plans with the platform. So today this is, as Nina mentioned, this is the first reverse pitch what we are having. Over time we hope that this will grow. And potentially we are going to have this kind of global reverse pitch, or some other events and so on. And basically we are building this kind of digital platform for this. We are powerhouse so that we can scale the operation even globally and so on. And how we are doing this is that we are doing it an innovative way. So that we are using the existing tools and platforms and integrating them together. So we are not developing new code mainly for the whole thing. And the benefit from this is that basically what you are using here, you can use also for your own projects and ideas, and such a way the ecosystem can grow without any that kind of, let's say, central control and so on, so that we will support this kind of freedom thinking in whole development. However, what I want to mention is that the challenges will be public. They will be public also in open. And the process what you are doing here, they will be private until you will then open them or you will disclose the results from those. And currently we have arranged two this kind of co-working environments for this ReverBits work, and those are open, and then we have using Google Team Drives for this. And this is the basic illustration what we are over time building, so that we will have the public sections, we will have community sections, we will have working section there, and then we can go even deeper to this kind of, let's say, global networking and APIs, etc. in future. And now we have these two elements here. And also I would like to just mention here with this slide, everything what we are doing with these platforms, they are following the regulation from GDPR. So no worry about anything related to that. And also over time we are adding even more modules here so that you can have really the freedom to use that kind of tools what you want to use, let's say naturally in your work. And currently we have selected these two options. This open, that's Nokia Open Ecosystem Network tool, and it's specially developed for this kind of ecosystem work, and you can try it and test it and find it if that's good or not. But that's really developed for this kind of ecosystem work. And then but it doesn't have any tools like Office tools or anything like that there. So it's certain kind of ecosystem tool. And then in Google environment we have we have all the Google tools, drives and documents, etc. available for the team. So you can select what you want to use. One thing I want to mention still is that for all these things you need to have your identity. In Open, you need to create your own new identity there. In Google environment, you can use your existing Google email address for the cooperation. But anyway, you need the identity there. You don't need to remember all this what I said, because everything is available. So you go to this public web page where you have been finding the information for this event, and there you can go to the ReverBits and page, and then you can continue to this competitor page, and there you will find then more information, all the details about this and tutorials about how to use those tools. And what I just want to say now is that currently we have 3 challenges there already waiting for you, and one will be added very, very, very soon, hopefully tonight so that you will have access to the material there. So thank you. Nice to see you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Reijo. All right, so now we're at the question part. I don't know, raise your hands. Do we have questions that we do on stage, or do you prefer to talk with us, Merja, everyone who's here, just one by one? So if you want to have like this collective questionnaire, put your hands up. Very non-Finnish, nobody wants to ask any questions. So we can just start hanging out together and, Howie. Yes, absolutely.
Just one thing that I should say, especially in follow-up to what Reijo was saying, that although we do intend, as I said, to include some of the process by which you're going to attack these problems in the TV episode, we're obviously not going to use this as a way of stealing your ideas and making them public when you might ultimately want to launch a business of your own to commercialize them. So obviously, we're going to respect people's privacy and confidentiality and give anybody who's involved editorial input to make sure that those things are respected.
Yes, and that's a very good point, and I can emphasize that even more. Everything you do is confidential, and all of the ideas and all of the pitches will be evaluated by the jury, and if we notice that, okay, here is some unique IPR, your backs are protected, nobody's going to steal it, so you know, maybe you're a millionaire, like half a year later, you just came up with the solution to save the planet. So that's definitely something you do not need to worry about, and the finals, unlike this happening, is not going to be open for public, because we want everybody who pitches their idea feel, you know, the freedom to really pitch them, and people are going to write their NDAs when they come to the finals. So the opening we can have very open, but then because we hope there's going to be some really good, valuable ideas, so that's that'll be the final thing. And as for TV series, there are many ways of doing TV without revealing ideas. So we will have our own little TV jury and see if any of the teams who want to be included and who have some great things happening, then you might just be surprised by a TV crew. So enjoy. We still have time to be here, and we have beverages. I think there's still some food, and we're here for any questions you have. And throughout the competition, you can always write me an email. You can even call me. I don't know if I can always answer, but you are always free to ask me anything, and then I'll try to redirect you to the scientist or somebody who actually knows what to answer if you make like a science group. But practical things, me, and of course Reijo, anything to do with the platform, is the guru of that. So great. Thanks for being here, and enjoy the rest of the evening.